Welcome, ladies. This month's Zoom meeting is going to be on first aid. The first aid portion is going to be on shock. So we're going to start doing that, and then we'll do snowshoeing as our second half. So super excited to have you all here. And the first part, we're going to talk about, Lisa's trying to join us.
Okay, cool.
Sorry. So shock is the poor oxygenated blood flow to the brain and to other organs. And that happens from having blood loss from many different things. And then dehydration, heart attack, spinal cord damage, severe allergic reactions, and illnesses and injuries. So you just think about oxygenated blood. If it's not getting to your heart, if it's not getting to your brain, then they're going to start acting kind of weird. You're going to start getting disoriented. Your heart's going to start to race. You're going to start breathing fast because you're not getting the oxygen and stuff that you need. If you had injury to your spinal cord, then that's going to start affecting the way your body is reacting to different things. And so then you can have these symptoms as well. But the big deal is that shock can kill you. It's very, very serious. So the assumption is that if you're coming upon anyone who has any sort of illness, any sort of injury that is concerning, we will assume that they're going to be going into shock, and we need to be watching for that because their illness or injury could be minor and they could still go into shock, and then that could cause bigger injuries and damage than the original illness or whatever they had initially. So we've always got to kind of keep this on our radar. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're going to be able to make sure that that brain, that heart is oxygenated with good blood. So the signs and symptoms that we're going to see, I don't know if any of you guys have ever had someone who suffered from shock. I had shock when I was little, when I stabbed my fingers with some scissors. I had taken the scissors and put them in half. So I had one blade up and one blade down. And I was chopping up something, frozen grape juice, as I recall, making it into a slushie, and stabbed two of my fingers, pulled that out, and then blood gushed everywhere. And I remember running through the house, super freaked out, and blood was in my hand. And I remember running to my mom and babbling something, and then she's like, ah! And one of the first things she did, besides after compressing for the blood, like applying compression, was to lay me down and put my feet up. And she treated me for shock right away. And she was just dead on. So I would say when you've got someone who's just kind of like, ha, 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 something bad's happening, I'm just not feeling good, be like, okay, we got to treat you for shock and have that be on your radar. So there's two kinds of shock. One is compensated shock, which is when your body is trying to compensate and fix the problem. And then there's decompensated shock, where your body has tried all it can and it's just falling apart. So we obviously want to catch someone in those first stages of compensated shock and help them get back on track. So the things that you're going to try that you'll notice is, one, they're starting to freak out. There's got anxiety and they're just not quite there. They're disoriented. They may not know who they are or where they are. Number two, their heart is going to start going crazy, racing. It could also be weak and thready. You can feel that by if you checked your own radial pulse right here, you'll feel, hopefully in a healthy person, you kind of feel it bounding. If somebody is in shock, you're barely going to feel it. It's going to feel, that's called thready and weak. So it's good for you to kind of feel the difference with somebody who has shock. So anyway, heart's going to be racing crazy, and that's going to be kind of weak. They're going to be breathing really fast, but they're not going to be taking deep breaths. It's going to be like an anxiety attack, if anyone's had one of those before. And then number four, that's number three. Number four is our skin gets cool and pale and clammy because that blood is like pulling away from your periphery and wants to shunt the blood to the center of our bodies and protect our brain and our heart. So that happens. In some forms of shock, however, they might be pink and warm. So don't use that as your main indicator. And then number five, they're going to start getting dizzy, lightheaded, that kind of stuff. They might be stumbling, things like that, because the body is pulling that blood and kind of shunting it in. And then number six will be thirst. They just start getting thirsty. Your body is trying to if you're losing blood, say like if I've had, I'm losing that fluid out of my body's trying to replenish that fluid and build up that blood reserve again. So they might get a little thirsty. And then the last one was nauseous, vomiting, just not feeling well. So those are the symptoms you're going to start. That's the face of a person who's starting at the beginning, who's in shock. So when you're starting to see someone, we're on a hike or something, and someone they fell or something like that, they fall off a cliff, or they, something happens, even if they witness something and it didn't happen to them, they can start going into shock just from visualizing things. So when you start seeing people a little freaked out, hearts racing, they're breathing a little weird, hands are clammy, not feeling so good on their tongue, those are the symptoms. You're like, oh my gosh, we got to start doing something about this person. Now, that's compensated shock. So the body is trying to fix itself. Decompensated shock is when we're past that point. The things you're going to see when, just imagine all these systems are shutting down. So instead of being confused and disoriented, they are starting to become like they are losing consciousness. They are incoherent. The blood pressure is going to tank. Now, we don't know, as you're looking at somebody on a hike or something, you can't tell what their blood pressure is. But what you can do is see how strong those pulses, that pressure is in the extremities. One of the easiest places to do is check that radial pulse right here. The best place, I always use my middle two fingers, just because I've got a strong pulse in my main finger, and you usually have a strong pulse in your thumb. But anyway, you can check here. And yeah, if you are not feeling a pulse in in the arm here, that's an indication that their blood pressure is dropping. And so just be aware of that. And then their eyes are going to start to you call it sluggish. The way you can do that is have them close their eyes. And you'd have a light here, or having them look at the sun, and then you take your hand off, and their eyes, like normal eyes, will go from I'm seeing darkness to I see light, oh, and then it'll go down. So if they're just kind of like, you're not seeing a change, that's a neurological symptom that things are starting to go really south in the brain. And they may not even be reactive at all. So that's, if you're watching someone who's in these shocky symptoms, you're just kind of keeping an eye on them. They're starting to get really wacky, or or they pass out, or you're feeling the radial pulse and you're like, oh my gosh, it's gone. Then these are the things you're like, that cycle will lead to death. So we want to catch things in the very first step. So what are the things that we would do to get somebody to prevent all these things, or get them in a good I call it the shock position. What does the shock position look like? So I want you to think about that. What we want to do is we want to figure out what's causing the shock. If they're bleeding a lot, we obviously want to stop that bleeding. We want to apply pressure. We want to, apply pressure, do the best we can to stop that bleeding, of course. If it's from, an allergic reaction, we might want to try and do an epinephrine pen, an EpiPen, and get the reaction to settle down. So you try and figure out what's causing the actual trauma and the shock. And then that's what we're going to treat. And we want to treat that as early as we can. And then we want to just calm them down. We want to lay them down, warm them up, put up their feet, and then hydrate them in small little sips. So if you, there's the handout that I have online, you can check it out. It has a picture of what the shock, someone you're treating for shock looks like. So I'm going to show you with my awesome assistant husband. So let's say JD here, broke his arm, or had a really bad sprained ankle, and it's kind of freaking him out. Or maybe it's a dislocated ankle for whatever reason, something that's just kind of whacked him out. So we're going to have you come lay down. So I'm going to calm him down, talk to him calmly.
On the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move this down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. There we go. All right. So I'm going to calm him down, and then I'm going to lay him down. And you notice he already naturally puts his legs up, and that's exactly what we want to do. So I have a backpack here. And you want to elevate probably about 12 inches, 8 to 12 inches or so, like a foot. So that's like a backpack. And I like to put it a little snugger under the knees because then it's a little bit better for, it just is more comfortable. So we do that. This allows blood to flow down to his brain and kind of help with that. The laying put down position just automatically helps somebody get in hopefully a more calm position unless they have some respiratory issues. But generally this should help kind of keep them calm. And then because they're just laying down, it's really easy if we're, especially in a mountain situation, if there's any sort of breeze or we're in the shade or something like that, they're going to start freezing. So if you're camping, you've got a sleeping bag. Let's kind of get you all nice and cozy. And we're going to put our little sleeping bag over him. If we're not camping, then any of your puffy coats or shells or jackets or whatever you've got, just kind of put over them, warm them up, and just, you know, keep them calm, reassuring. It's so funny. So he could have like a dislocated ankle and we can still take care of that in this position, if that makes sense. So, you know, we're kind of, as we're trying to take care of whatever's causing their shock, we can also be getting them into position as well at the same time. So, and then we would have our little water bottle that I could, you know, if he's feeling up to it. My rule of thumb for feeding people who are sick is, and giving them water, if they can look at you and you can see them react, you know, you have a communication, then they're probably in a good situation to drink. If they can verbalize things to you. If you're talking to them and they're just like not paying attention, if their eyes are closed at all, don't give them food or water. We need to see their eyes open, they're engaged with you, they know what's going on. And then I think they might be, they're in a position to eat and drink. So this is what a shock position, recovery position looks like. So just burn that in your brain. Someone's starting to act a little wacky. This is what we want to do for them.
Cross section.
Anyway, that's it. I'm gonna go to. Well, you can go now, babe. I love you.
Okay, you bet.
I'm gonna open it. See if anyone has questions. I'll give you a couple minutes, or a minute if you want to unmute yourself. Otherwise, just maybe give me a thumbs up or something with your picture. Lisa's good. Erica's
Thumbs up,
good.
Erica.
Excellent.
I'm sure Erin's fine.
Erin's always fun and amazing. Okay, so this, yeah, I have the paper for those guys who are watching at a later time. I've got everything printed. I mean, the document's on the Facebook page, so you can print that off and kind of look through stuff. As always, we get our first aid information and all our first aid classes from this book. The Backcountry First Aid, an extended care book by Buck Tilton. This is only like $4 on Amazon. So if you don't have this in your first aid kit, I strongly encourage you to get it. It's super easy. Like, it's not a big book. I don't know if you can see that. It's all out of focus, I know, but like, it just has it just breaks things down really simple. And this is the book that is the Cliff Notes for the Wilderness First Responder course that we took. So this stuff is very awesome, very relevant, and amazing. So, all right, that's it for shock. It's not too complicated, but just always have it on your radar. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you ladies later.